Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Before Working in Sports. Today, we are joined with a special guest, Jason Weinzirl. Jason, I'll go ahead and let you take it away, introduce yourself, and we'll get to it.
All right. Thanks, Patrick. I'm Jason Weinzirl. I am the Associate Director of Ticket Operations at the University of Miami. I got started in sports just working in college. I went to the University of Kansas where I got my bachelor's in sport management and minor in business. And at first, I started out as a business major, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Just kind of went to college hoping I'd find some sort of passion. I obviously always loved sports. I grew up playing baseball and basketball and football all my life, basketball all the way through high school. So definitely always had that attachment to it. Once I got to Kansas and kind of discovered the sport management program, it, just kind of opened the door of get the ideas flowing of what I wanted to do. And then just happenstance looking for a part-time job while at school, had an opening at the ticket office as a customer service representative, putting in ticket orders, working the ticket windows and game day pass lists and that kind of stuff. And going through that was a lot of fun. It kind of had some cool perks with it as a student, getting to go to all the games, especially with as big as Kansas basketball is, getting to be kind of a part of that from a different perspective was really cool to see. And especially being a kid like me who grew up as a Kansas fan, I have a family with that background. So I was fully in, I was immersed into it right away with the interest on it. Then worked that throughout as a student. And when it came time to find internships, I knew I wanted to stay in operations based because that's what my bosses were. We were all through the ticket operations department, and there weren't a ton that I could find right away. A lot of them were GA programs, but this was something that I needed before graduation and being able to go find it. And what actually ended up happening at Kansas was they had a box office manager, which is kind of also known as ticket operations coordinators, a lot of other schools. She had ended up moving on to another job, and the department decided to cut the position to save on the budget. And when they did that, it wasn't something that they necessarily, had to do. They just, did to help out the program and kind of thought they could divide up the responsibilities accordingly, and they did. And it just kind of just lined up perfectly for me to kind of identify that they had that position there. Now they don't. I'm looking for an internship position. This is something where I could kind of try to step into a role and take on some of those similar responsibilities. And, they get essentially a kid that they're just paying by the hour and a student worker on it too. So it kind of worked out both ways. And I was obviously familiar with a lot of their policies and processes during that. So I had that internship lined up for the final stretch of my senior year. And that carried into about 2 months into that summer. And then I was able to take a position at Florida State University in their ticket office as a ticket operations coordinator. And there I got to kind of transition from the big basketball school to the big football school, which was really cool to see too, kind of getting that, just the big fan bases too of just what they want to follow and what they see, and getting that scope of it, and just jumping from another big conference to another one, going to the ACC. And there I ran women's basketball for their operations and helped out a lot with baseball, and then also ran the box office on game days for football games. And I did that job for 2 years, and then was able to come across another position, which is mine now as associate director here at Miami. And I'm coming up on my 2-year mark here. I'm overseeing baseball and basketball and secondary football, and running big box office on game days for that as well down here. And that was my background.
Awesome. Jason, maybe you could also walk us through kind of what the day-to-day is like in your role to give the audience a better idea of what they'd be getting into if they went into ticket ops.
Yeah, so it's obviously depending on the season of what you're getting ready for. Our department is constantly trying to have something on sale in a sense. So we tried to roll out with whether it's our season ticket sales or single game sales, we try to go out as early as we can. So like we already have our 2021 football season renewals. We've already done our renewals. We've done our seat relocation. And we're gearing up to put together our single game plans and what that's going to look like already now. Obviously, we're already going through baseball season as well. So it can be a little bit of a balancing act with every sport. You got game days on the weekends that you got to get ready for. I have a 3-game baseball series this weekend that we got against Duke that I'll have, and I'll be at every game there and getting ready for those and being in the box office and managing our staff there, as well as, like I said, putting together those plans for football. Our department tries to help out the university as much as we can in every aspect too. And we actually, this coming spring, we're ticketing commencement for the university as well, as a new one that we've never done before that we decided to take on as well. So it, like I said, the day-to-day is definitely always changing. It, like I said, it depends on that season, but it's anywhere from just coordinating with all the different departments that you have on whatever sport that they're trying to help out or get ready for or help out a customer for. You're working with all different departments within athletics, whether it's, the development and fundraising, because if there's going to be donations tied to certain perks, whether that's being able to buy away game tickets, you're working with the business office, who's reconciling all your daily transactions, and you're reporting on those. You're auditing all those daily money that's coming in, as well as just end of game sales. You're having to keep track and report on all of that. Communicating with compliance on passless setup and checking in everybody accordingly each game and game by game, and that has to follow under a lot of rules and guidelines by the NCAA, whether they're a recruit or just a family member and all that. So you gotta, it's a lot of moving parts, and it's just a lot of organization and coordination that goes on in the day-to-day, I'd say.
So you're wearing a lot of different hats is what I'm hearing. But that's awesome. And I think another cool thing that you mentioned is just some of the premier programs and universities you've been able to, put your fingerprint on, whether it's at Kansas or Florida State or Miami, every university kind of bringing something different. I think a lot of times on this show, we've had a lot of guests on the pro sports side, but for you, college sports has been it your whole time. Just kind of, if you don't mind touching on the significance of what it's like to work in college sports and maybe taking that avenue as opposed to just taking the professional sports route like we often think about a lot of times.
Yeah. The best thing I would say is that rotation of different sports seasons as opposed to the pros. So you're gearing up for one season, one team. That's your sole focus. I like that change of going from baseball to football to basketball and back around again. Like, I grew up playing all those sports. It's awesome to be a part of each and every sport and coordinating with those teams. One of the best perks of ticket operations is on like certain postseason events or big away games for football, we get to travel with the team for that and run those passes and coordinate those away game sales and will call pickups. And it's a great networking tool because you have to connect with all the schools of the teams that you're traveling to. And even if it's postseason, you're at a baseball regional or in March Madness, you're in that region with all these other teams and all these other ticket ops representatives. It just becomes a great networking tool too. But yes, I guess it kind of got a little off track there, but to answer your initial question, that rotation of multiple sports is what has always resonated with me is, probably my favorite part about it for sure.
Wow. Well, I kind of understand a little bit being working in college sports, but for me, I'm just doing football. So it's definitely a different thing. But one thing I'm curious about is, kind of touched on it a little bit earlier of like wearing all those different hats, and Alex touched on that, but what would you say, like, especially for you, like getting into that director role, like what are some things that, whether it's with your team or just focusing on all the different sports, what are some things that maybe you struggled with or that worked well for you, or what tips would you have for someone? Because even as a recent graduate, when you get into a new role, you have all these new things you're trying to figure out, these adjustments you've made. So what are some things, whether it's getting into that director role, that worked for you or maybe you struggled with in that transition? And what are some things that have really helped you with balancing all the different sports teams as well as your all the different people working in ticket ops?
Yeah, I would say that like definitely the big thing is just trying to being as efficient and reliable as you possibly can be. Like you have to have the drive to want to, to get things done. First of all, like if you want to work in athletics, I know not only ticket ops, any department, everybody works hard. So like you can't really say you're overworked or you're too tired, because everybody's tired. Everybody's busting their butt to make a sale or to get that graphic out, or to land land that donor. Like everybody's working hard for it. So definitely you got to be reliable. You got to be efficient at what you do. And if you don't know, like you got to ask questions. You can't just brush it off to the side, because it'll come back and bite you. So you got to I found great mentors everywhere I've been, and people that have been willing to work with me and teach me and show me the ropes, and trying to take it from there. And once you get to a level of comfort with your responsibilities and you get really good at those, you start opening up to being able to take on more. Once you have that down to where you can do something, you can knock something out without even thinking about it, what else can you do? And just not being complacent with your responsibilities that you have on the day-to-day. One thing I can say that I definitely struggled with, and still at some points, even today now, is just prioritization of everything. Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts of going. You have a lot of people coming at you with different questions, different favors, different things that they need, and you need to be able to, kind of evaluate everything, what needs to get done in what manner, and each level of importance in doing that too. And that's something that definitely was a hurdle for me at first too, because at the lower roles that I had, like at Florida State and Kansas, it was kind of just like, oh, just take care of all the little things. But then as you are moving up, and you have to definitely reevaluate that and kind of look at more of the big picture of the aspect, rather than just trying to just knock out every little bit that you can.
Jason, I think one thing that hits me right away is just the amount of hands that are involved in your work, right? Like the head baseball coach, the head basketball coach, we're talking about recruits, we're talking about donors, we're talking about a lot of NCAA rules here. I mean, I know you talked about prioritization and organization is a big thing for you, but I mean, is there one scenario that you can think of right now that it just like clicks, like that shows why that's super important, like something bad that has happened in your time in ticket ops that you've had to correct really, really quickly? I mean, I know you talk about how it's so important to prioritize and figure out how to make things work, right? So what's an example of that, just for our listeners, of how quick you have to think on your feet?
There could be lots of things. So like, I guess on a game day, you have to go through all your checkpoints beforehand too. It's not just we're showing up when we're handing out tickets at the window. Some people might think that. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. That'd be nice. It'd be a lot easier on me. But you're getting there, and you're getting make sure all the tickets are working. Tickets are printing if you have paper tickets now. I know that's not as much the case now. A lot of people are going mobile with COVID, and probably trending that way anyway now too. But testing those computers, testing the printers, testing the scanners, make sure the tickets are scanning at their gates and they're scanning the right tickets. So it's a lot of testing. It's a lot of going for that, because if you don't lay out all those steps there too, you could run into issues of if you're only worried about getting all the passes set for everybody too, and then tickets aren't scanning, scanners aren't working. That's a big problem, because you got people waiting out trying to get inside, and that looks bad on the whole arena or stadium that you're trying to let people in, and that comes down to you for not making sure that it wasn't going accordingly. Fortunately, that's never happened to me at that exact time, but like that's definitely something you have to look out for. And it could be too, like with the pass list for a family member of a player that's on the team. They might have went through compliance a little late, or they texted someone from compliance to get somebody added to the list, but the one you got printed out didn't have them on the list to get checked in. So they're at the gate, and they're supposed to get a ticket and supposed to get in to see their son or daughter play, and now they can't, because you maybe if you miss an email or something like that. So it's just trying to go through and cover all your bases according to what's coming around the corner at you.
What would you say to a college student that wants to go into ticket ops? Like, what should they be doing in college right now to prepare themselves for a career?
Try to get involved in the athletic department any way that you can. That's the only thing that really prepared me for being able to get a position afterwards too, kind of laying a foundation and a basis for kind of what those policies and how things were run. A big thing with ticket operations is knowing the ticket system that you use. We use Pacquiao, a lot of college schools do. That's a little bit of one of those differences between college and pro too. I know a lot of pro teams, majority from what I know, are on Ticketmaster or Arctic system. We're on their competitor of that. So we're being able to learn those systems and how to put in orders and stuff like that too is just, it's a simple way to try to get a hourly student job. It could be even just working on game days. We don't have actually student workers come in here that work in our office, but we hire them for our game days that work our ticket windows and do that. So just trying to get in any way you can would be the best way for that. And that could be too. It might not be if a ticket ops job isn't offering right away too. Try to get into facilities. Try to get into marketing. Try to get into development. Because then those networks are there too. For if you are interested in that, you can try to talk to your superiors and try to make that jump over too. I know offhand my boss down here, he started out in like the sales, and then also he's actually a student at Kansas as well, which shows the networking part of how I got down here. He started in sales as a student, and then went to like marketing for a little bit, and then he ended up in ticket ops. Just trying to find your way in as soon as possible, just to try to get your foot in the door and see if you like it.
And it's one of those things that you talked about, right? Like, there's no ticket ops class at Kansas that they taught, right? Like, you just had to kind of grab it by the horns, right, and take it on. Probably at some times that were not opportune, right? Like, you just had to learn on the fly.
Yeah, I feel like in ticket ops sometimes that's kind of one of it can be sometimes go by the wayside, kind of the least talked about. Like if I remember talking to anybody outside of athletics and I say, oh, I'm in ticket operations, the first thing they say is, oh, you sell tickets. Well, I don't. I don't pick up the phone. I don't call anybody. I wouldn't, that's not something I'd be good at. But yeah, it's definitely more so tied to the system side of things and building things. So if you are interested in that, kind of computer, a little bit technological side of things, that is what it is. You're building seat maps, you're building price tables, you're building everything to format online, so how a customer can go through and purchase a ticket and that path that goes through. You're putting all that together. Even the tickets, you're formatting what those look like. We're putting graphics and logos on those tickets, whether it's a paper ticket or a mobile ticket on your phone. We're putting those together and formatting those. So it's definitely something that's not always covered for students, that they just don't know about it. They think just tickets, and they think sales and service. They kind of don't realize the ops side of that.
I'm curious to jump in on that end. I know you mentioned kind of building out the maps, things like that. I'd imagine with COVID, the social distancing, that's made building some of those maps and things like that a little bit more difficult. Just curious to hear maybe how COVID's impacted your job a little bit in terms of building those maps. And then, obviously you guys being kind of in and out of the office, and then kind of a two-parter, just the trend towards mobile ticketing and maybe, what you kind of think on that end from a lot of, sports entities.
Yeah, COVID's definitely affected us in the way of it's in a lot of ways made my job a lot busier, especially with because when it hit, we were 13 games into a 37 game baseball season, and you have all those people paid for and set with their tickets. So you gotta go through the process of bulk refunds of everybody getting their money back, or if they want to communicating them to beforehand of if they want to just credit it to next season, credit to another sport, if they want to just apply it to football. A lot of them of our season ticket holders have it for multiple sports. So, trying to communicate to them and getting those opportunities to see what they want to do with those funds, and then going through that big process. And you're doing that with hundreds to thousands of accounts and doing that. So you definitely have to make sure to, it's as detailed as possible. So you're not, no one person's getting, left behind, or their accounts getting messed up in that process. And then also carrying over to football then too, we were gearing up for potentially at first, having full capacity again, but then also looking at 20%, 15%, 10% in all those seat blocks. So now you're putting together these kind of dummy maps, if you will, of different season plans and all these different seat blocks and how you're going to fit a block of 4. And then that's 6 feet from a block of 2, and you got to fit a 3, and then someone's going to have 5 tickets. So you got to kind of find that line of what's that max that you can work with, and how to space them all and fit them all in accordingly to fit that map. And then that also carried into basketball too, of kind of planning for, we might have that full capacity back, but then again, we might not too. So having to kind of double plan in a sense. And you also said mobile ticketing as well. That's definitely something that has been the trend for the past couple of years, that everyone's kind of gearing towards that. I know a lot of the big events like the college football playoff and a lot of big preseason bowl games, those preseason kickoffs, a lot of them go mobile, and that's kind of set a trend for a lot of people going that way. COVID kind of forced a lot of people's hands. It did with ours. We were kind of easing into it at first, but then being able to kind of fully dive into it, and we have for the whole past year, and it's definitely, I would say, here to stay. I'm a huge fan of it because from an efficiency standpoint, it's just you're not worrying about the mail, you're not worrying about dealing with the other ticket companies to get your shipments in of tickets, sorting them, going through them, and shipping them back out. It's you're formatting that ticket and that set of tickets in that combo set of the season, and you're sending it to their email or the phone. So that's the efficiency aspect of it is awesome. I'm glad that it's here to stay.
So with that on the mobile ticketing, how much does that affect or change the role of the box office? Because I've worked at box office before in the paper ticketing world, and I remember lots of big deals being made out of fake tickets being sold, having to check to see if it was a fake ticket, having to print out tickets for people. Like, does the mobile ticketing make a big difference in your day-to-day in the box office?
I definitely would say that at least this past year, I saw a lot less fake tickets. I'm not sure if that was just with the limited capacity and less people there, but hopefully that is the case. But yes, it should expedite that a lot more with the fake tickets, because you don't have people, copying, big PDFs on paper that they're printing out or anything. If it's all on their phone, that barcode, you can look up that barcode and track that to that account. For that, some of the new issues that you run into though is just people just being unfamiliar with that process of, they're used to getting their tickets in the mail, they're used to picking them up from the box office, they're used to picking up on the office during the week, and now they're just being sent to their phone. They got to download them, or they might not have service, or their phone dies, or whatever the case may be. You have a lot of those kind of random new issues that kind of pop up, but it's nice in the sense that you can try to educate them through that process of teaching them. We post things online on our website of kind of walkthroughs of how to do it, how to get your ticket set up and ready on your phone, so you don't have as little issues as possible, which is not usually something, you can't do that when you're sending out tickets and they get lost in the mail, and then you got to reprint them and go through that whole process again. So it definitely has its set of issues, but it definitely has its resolutions as well.
And you also talked about, I know for you and I, Jason, we're in the state of Florida, so things have shifted constantly with participation and what we've been allowed to have in stadiums, right? Like trying to reseat a venue with paper tickets. I couldn't even imagine the long nights you'd be having. You would own a share in Starbucks at that point. It would be incredible, right? Like I'm assuming the virtual aspect of being able to change tickets from that, this is our plan if we go 20%, but later on in the season, if we can have half capacity, this is where his seats will be, or this is how we're going to handle this donor's tickets throughout the year. I'm sure that's made your job easier in some way, navigating all this COVID regulations.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Because one thing that we still do have to do paper for is like the pass list tickets for, player guests and former players and all of those. And that definitely took longer in the sense of having to obviously print them out and then sort them by their blocks and make sure that the right tickets are staying together and banding them together on which seats are separated from the next block and organizing those accordingly too. So that takes way more time than just printing them out and getting them in order. And then on top of that too, like making sure everything's cleaned and sanitized. Like the people that are organizing them are wearing masks and gloves now. So it's a lot of more, it was definitely more moving parts that added time to get that prepared. So yeah, and that's a very small number compared to the thousands of season tickets and single game tickets that we had out there. So I couldn't imagine if it was all paper there would have been no way. There would have been a lot less, lot more people probably just at zero capacity at that too. Just, they wouldn't probably have the manpower to do
that. So something I'm a little curious about, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but when like COVID was first starting, like sometimes you're having limited capacity and had to figure out kind of how to do the blocks and things for operations for like where people are going to sit and things like that. Did you guys have any type of like priority system or some type of way to figure out like who is going to be able to come to the games or things like that? Because that's something that I've seen a lot of places try to figure out, and everyone kind of does it differently to, try and make everyone happy, but it's kind of hard to do that when like you're only at 20% capacity or something like that. So is there anything from the operation side that you guys kind of maybe worked well with, or something that you tried to figure out in order to make it be the best situation for as many people as you can, even though, you weren't able to bring in a full stadium at certain points?
that. Yeah. So what we did for football was to, like I said, try to help as many people as we can was the goal. And so we just did basically a large single game sale for our season ticket holders and put that online for them. We did organize them in a priority of, what their tenure is, what their spend is. Do they have a level of donation in the Hurricane Club? All those factored into that priority and getting their selection for single games. And it worked out in the sense of a lot of people were able to get all the games that they wanted to. There's one, and it gave you that flexibility too. Of if some people didn't necessarily, feel comfortable right away and they wanted to wait. They didn't have to select for the first two games. They could have gone later in the year with hoping for things to change down the line too. That's what we did for football. For baseball, it's a very much smaller venue. Our full capacity is, less than 5,000 in a normal season. So that you're shrinking it down with those blocks that took a tremendous amount, and our attendance now is around 700 per game. So that's a huge difference of that too. And trying to, we did do a full season ticket rather than the single game model, and trying to get that organized priority of people who have the highest tenure, who've had tickets the longest, as well as their spend of what they give per year and doing the seat selection process. And, you want to help everybody. You can't always, especially in this case. There was definitely people that, they had to cut off somewhere. So that is the unfortunate part of it too, because, you have fans that want to come and, they want to spend their money to come cheer on your team. And, you just don't have the seats available for it because, just you're kind of up against the wall with COVID. Hopefully that's with the vaccines coming out and everything too, we can get back to at least higher capacities, if not full. And I'm looking forward to having everybody back, and definitely makes that, like I said, makes my job a lot easier. Not have to worry about the CFLACs putting together those distance manifests and give everybody that wants to come and support the team in there.
Is it time, Walker?
I think it's time, boys. So Jason, You've said that you've listened to the podcast, a couple times to prepare yourself for this. We definitely appreciate the research. The one part of this podcast you can never prepare yourself for is the very end. Obviously, we love to ask an interview-style question at the end just to have a little bit of fun to wrap it all up. But I've got a good one this week. So if you had to use one sporting venue to describe your personality, what one would it be and why?
Oof. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Allen Fieldhouse because I am a day one Jayhawk, and I would just say because just the passion of sports and being in it, and that is just one of the most passionate fan bases that you can see. From even if you've never been around a KU fan, because if you haven't, you would know if you have because they're we definitely voice it. And just from seeing it on TV, you see how raucous they can be and how raucous that place is. And it's got, just the history of it and just that passion. So I think that definitely resonates with me just as I was a basketball guy too, growing up too. So that just the passion of the history of the game, that one definitely resonates most with me.
Great answer. Nothing like the Fog. Nothing like it.
Yeah, that was one of the saddest ones too with COVID, just seeing with how many consecutive sellouts that they've had there and not being able to let everybody in too, just not the same, and it's sad to see.
Not the same at all. Very sad to see. Yeah. Well, I think, this you go ahead, Max.
No, I was just going to say, I think you got the job.
There we go. Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Gonna let everyone say any sort of final thoughts, and then after that, we'll just turn it to you. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Appreciate you coming on, Jason. Learned a lot myself about ticket ops. A lot of respect for yourself and everybody that's on the ticket ops side. You guys deserve more credit, so much respect.
Yeah, really, really thank you, Jason, because, I've done a lot of research, but you can only learn so much from research. So it's good to hear from your side of things on the actual experience. So really appreciate it.
Jason, I think as sales guys, we can't understate what you do. I don't know about the other three guys on the show, but I work with a ticket ops person almost every day with some harebrained situations that one of my wonderful NASCAR clients gets me into. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for making some ability to have somebody out there in the stands this year. A lot of people don't get to see the work you guys do, and you spend a lot of hours. So thank you, and thanks for shedding the light on the situation with all of us today.
My pleasure to come on, guys. Thank you for putting this all together. This is something that I know when I was a student or even just getting involved in sports early on, and even now is just something awesome to follow along too, just getting to see all the people you're bringing in and their perspective on all the different aspects of sports. You don't see that a lot, so it's definitely something that I can see being beneficial for anybody working sports or trying to get in, especially as a student. I wish that I had something like this to reference to or just to utilize as a student trying to break into the industry. So I love what you guys are doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today. Tune back in next week for another episode of Before Working in Sports.